If your life feels like one long side quest, congratulations! Homer wrote about you 3,000 years ago. You start with a plan. Maybe it is school, a job, a relationship, a dream, whatever. Then suddenly the universe throws in distractions, disasters, weird enemies, terrible timing, and one tiny mistake that somehow adds 5 years to the plot. That is the Odyssey. On the surface, it is an ancient Greek story about a king trying to sail home after war. But underneath the monsters, storms, gods, and dramatic ocean nonsense, it is about something painfully familiar, trying to get back to who you are while life keeps interrupting. Odysseus does not just travel across the sea. He gets delayed by pride, temptation, bad decisions, and divine-level consequences. Basically, the original main character stuck in hard mode before breakfast even starts. And to understand why this journey hits so hard, we need to meet the man who caused half his own problems. Odysseus is not the biggest warrior in ancient Greek mythology. He is not Achilles, the human blender with anger issues. He is not Heracles, whose solution to every problem is basically, what if I punched it harder? Odysseus wins because he thinks. He lies, negotiates, improvises, escapes, tricks enemies, reads the room, and somehow survives situations where a normal person would become a cautionary footnote. This is the guy behind the Trojan Horse, one of history's most famous, they actually fell for that, moments. After 10 years of war, the Greeks pretend to leave Troy, hide soldiers inside a giant wooden horse, and wait for the Trojans to drag it inside their own city. It is brilliant, ridiculous, and exactly the kind of plan Odysseus would love. But here is the problem. Being clever can make a person dangerous, especially to themselves. Odysseus has intelligence, courage, charisma, and the confidence of someone who has never once thought, maybe I should stop talking. The war is finally over. The hero should sail home, hug his family, and roll credits. Instead, the real disaster is just warming up behind the horizon. The legendary Trojan War takes 10 years. Getting home somehow also takes another 10 years, which is honestly terrible scheduling. Odysseus wants one simple, impossible thing. Ithaca, his island, his wife Penelope, his son Telemachus, who has spent most of his childhood hearing that his father might be dead. Instead, the Mediterranean turns into a giant obstacle course with terrible customer service. Gods interfere. Storms wipe out ships. Monsters eat people. Every island offers a new way to ruin your future, usually with snacks, magic, or a decision that sounds fine for exactly 12 seconds. And that is what makes the Odyssey more than a monster tour. Each stop presses on a different weakness. Greed says take more. Fear says run. Curiosity says open the door. Temptation says stay where it is easy. Pride says announce your name after you have already escaped. Despair says none of this matters anymore. Odysseus is fighting sea creatures, but he is also fighting the parts of himself that keep making the journey longer. Some enemies want to kill him. The more dangerous ones offer him reasons to stop becoming who he needs to be. The first major lesson arrives when he meets a monster and delivers the worst victory speech in mythological history. Odysseus lands on an island, finds a cave full of food, and makes the kind of decision that always begins with, "This will only take a minute." The cave belongs to Polyphemus, a Cyclops with one eye, a very bad temper, and absolutely no interest in Greek hospitality. When Polyphemus returns, he traps Odysseus and his men inside, then starts eating them. Not metaphorically. This is now a hostage crisis run by a mountain-sized cannibal. Odysseus cannot kill him because the giant boulder blocking the exit would stay exactly where it is. So he does what he does best. He builds this weirdly specific plan. He gets the Cyclops drunk, tells him his name is nobody, then blinds him with a sharpened stake. When Polyphemus screams that nobody is attacking him, the other Cyclopes decide this is somehow not their problem. Odysseus and the survivors escape beneath the bellies of sheep. Clever? Absolutely. Flawless? Almost. He has won. He is safe. All he has to do is shut up. But Odysseus cannot leave without shouting his real name across the water. It is the ancient Greek version of posting your location after getting away with something illegal. Polyphemus now knows exactly who ruined his day, and he calls on his father Poseidon to punish him. Once Poseidon enters the chat, the journey stops being difficult and becomes personally targeted. Poseidon can throw storms, but not every danger arrives looking dangerous. Some of Odysseus's worst setbacks come with good food, beautiful music, and the promise that he deserves a break. The scariest monsters are not always trying to kill you. Sometimes they are the ones offering you a nap. Take the Lotus-Eaters. Their food makes people forget home, responsibility, and every reason they ever had to leave the beach. No claws, no fire, just permanent distraction. Odysseus has to drag his men back to the ships before comfort quietly rewrites their lives. Then comes Circe, who turns his crew into pigs, which is alarming, but also feels less like a transformation and more like a blunt personality assessment. Odysseus resists her magic, wins her respect, and stays for a year anyway, because even the cleverest person can recognize a trap and still move into it. The Sirens offer knowledge so irresistible that sailors steer toward death. Odysseus plugs his men's ears and has himself tied to the mast, determined to hear everything without acting on it. That is discipline, knowing you cannot trust yourself, then building the ropes before the music starts. And then there are Scylla and Charybdis, where every route costs something. One monster eats sailors, the other swallows the sea. Odysseus chooses the loss he can survive, but each choice leaves fewer men beside him. Eventually, the monsters outside matter less than the damage gathering inside him. Eventually, Odysseus sails somewhere no hero visits for fun, the Underworld. He needs answers, a prophecy, a clue. Instead, he meets the dead, and the story suddenly loses its armor. This is where the myth stops feeling like a fantasy game and starts feeling like therapy with ghosts. Odysseus speaks with Tiresias, the blind prophet, who tells him the route home is still possible if he learns restraint. A useful warning for a man whose talent is self-sabotage. But the prophecy is not the part that hurts most. He also meets people he loved. His mother is there, dead while he was away fighting and wandering. He tries to hold her, but she slips through his arms. No clever plan fixes that. No disguise tricks death. For all his intelligence, Odysseus cannot negotiate one more conversation. He sees fallen heroes, too, reminders that glory is not a permanent address. The war everyone celebrated has left graves behind it. His crew keeps shrinking. His choices keep echoing. Every mile toward home has demanded something from him. So when Odysseus leaves the underworld, Ithaca is no longer just a pin on a map. Home becomes a question. After everything he has lost, can he return as someone worthy of it? Odysseus reaches Ithaca. This should be a warm family reunion. Instead, he returns disguised. His house is occupied territory. Penelope has spent years fending off suitors who eat Odysseus's food, spend his wealth, and pressure her to choose a new husband. They assume the old king is dead. His son Telemachus has grown up under their shadow, old enough to fight, but never really knowing whether his father is alive. The cruelest part of coming home is realizing home kept moving while you were gone. Odysseus does not burst through the doors with a sword. Not yet. He arrives looking like a beggar, watching who is kind when there is nothing to gain, and who has mistaken his absence for permission. He tests the loyalty of servants, his son, and even the ground beneath his own name. That disguise matters. The man who once needed everyone to know he was Odysseus has learned to survive by staying quiet. He is still clever, still dangerous, but now his patience has a purpose. The final conflict is not against a monster. It is against the chaos that grew in his absence. Odysseus's suitors think he is gone. The house is theirs, and the beggar harmless. Then he finally picks up his old bow. This is a weapon only he can string, the least subtle test imaginable. The suitors fail repeatedly. Odysseus draws it, sends an arrow through the target, and drops the disguise. After 10 years of monsters, storms, and divine harassment, the final boss is a house of entitled freeloaders. What follows is brutal. Odysseus and Telemachus fight together, clearing the hall and ending the takeover. But this is not a simple action movie victory. The violence restores order, yet the real victory is recognition. Penelope does not accept him just because he says his name. She tests him with their bed, built around an olive tree, a secret only Odysseus could know. When he answers, the wandering ends. He has not merely defeated enemies, he has reclaimed his identity, his family, and his place in the world. Now the myth can finally tell us what all that suffering was for. The Odyssey understands this. Life is not straight. Plans fail. Detours multiply. You lose things, learn things, and arrive changed. Odysseus wants to get home, but Ithaca cannot be the same after 20 years, and neither can he. The journey strips away his pride, shortcuts, and every easy version of himself. Maybe the point was never that Odysseus got home. Maybe the point was that the journey finally made him ready to return. Your life may not involve monsters or angry sea gods. Still, every detour asks, when you finally arrive, will you recognize the person who made it home? If you think that story deserved to be told, leave a like. It takes 2 seconds, and it's the only thing that tells me to keep digging up stories like this. I'll see you in the next one.